Hi there. Welcome to the Imperfect Prophet podcast for women who wonder. Frankly, as we go through life, I'm sure we wonder about a great deal. First as little kids, then as adolescents, then as young women, then as transitional women. What are we calling ourselves these days? And then you get to this point in life, or my point in life, when you're postmenopausal and wondering what's next. Wondering if the parade already passed you by. Join me, Wonder Wendy. I'm going to be your host as we talk about some of these unique challenges that face women today in a new millennium, going through menopause and trying to live a rich, full life. There might even be a few men and younger women that want to listen in too. That's okay. But there's a roller coaster and we're all on it. And I'm going to be your guide to help you figure out when you should close your eyes, when you should hang on, and maybe we'll explore some ideas for what works for you if it doesn't work for me, or vice versa. So join the conversation, pick up your favorite beverage, and we'll talk to you soon. Welcome to the Imperfect Prophet.
Have you ever walked into a room and thought, I don't belong here? Not because anyone was unkind, not because you were unwelcome, but because you could tell the story had started before you arrived. In this episode, I want to talk about fitting in, about building connections, and about why that question doesn't disappear just because we get older. Hopefully, we get wiser and more experienced, but the situation is still there. Fitting in isn't something we do once, graduate, and never have to do again. Sorry to be a bummer. I know you want it to be done. You want to just do it. Not the way it works. It's a practice we've invited back into again and again. From kindergarten to midlife, I've heard it can be the same thing when you walk into the senior center for the first time. And the reason this matters is simple. Connection doesn't just make life nicer, it makes it livable. And of course, I've got a story. Now, 6 years ago, a friend dragged me to hot yoga class. Now, I mean, dragged me. I went to shut her up to prove once and for all that I had never found a yoga class I enjoyed, and I wasn't about to start now, especially not with hot yoga. Ugh. I told myself I would go once. I would sweat. I would hate it. And then I would be justified for my lifelong skepticism. I knew it. But strangely, that one class changed my attitude. Not because I was good at it. Oh, God, I was awful. Not because I suddenly felt flexible or graceful or enlightened, but something shifted and I felt like I breathed a little bit better. And maybe there was something more. I stayed curious and I kept showing up. 6 years later, yeah, more than 6 years later, yoga is a big part of my life. Not because every class is magical, but because familiarity was built through repetition. Oh, yeah. What does that have to do with fitting in? The other day, I heard about a guy who was new to the yoga discipline that I do. And he said, I don't like this class. There are too many inside jokes. And it blurted it out. My first thought was, well, you should come more often. Because when you show up repeatedly, the inside jokes stop being alienating and start becoming shared experience. You slowly enter the circle. You learn the rhythm of the exercises. The patterned breathing becomes part of your pattern and the connection with the others who have been there. By the way, yoga does actually mean unity in breath. You recognize the names when you've been staying there. You begin to belong. And that kind of acceptance is earned. And it shouldn't be expected on day one. It's nice when it happens, but you know. Anyway, welcome to The Imperfect Prophet, a podcast for women who wonder. I'm your host, Wonder Wendy. I have my cup of tea. Just when I need it on an evening like this. I hope you have your beverage because, as you remember, it's always more convivial when we share a beverage together. And today we're talking about something that we forget all about, but still experience in midlife and beyond. Fitting in, why it's hard, why it matters, and why so many of us walk away just before things start to get better. Here's the thing. Inside jokes aren't barriers, they're receipts. They're proof you were here, proof time was spent. Just like when you hold the receipt and go, I bought it for $12.95 on December 31st. It's proof. Awkward moments eventually they turn into laughter. My daughter, Becca, giggles every time I say, don't make me take off my shoe. Tracy and I can't say the name of the poet Samuel Coleridge Taylor, or in the interest of our story, Samuel Coleridge Taylor, without collapsing into laughter. Arija and I, we talk about steps and stars, and the tears of laughter are right on the edge. All three of these stories mean nothing to you, nothing to the outsider. We can't even easily explain them and the context to which they belong. But to us, they are rich references that keep us connected. And inside jokes don't happen because people are trying to exclude. They happen because people stayed. And that's what I want to talk about in this episode. We're living in a moment, especially as women in midlife, where we want connection now. We want everything now. We want to walk into a room and instantly feel comfortable, recognized, included. And when that doesn't happen, we tell ourselves a story. I don't belong here. These aren't my people. Oh, they're judging me. I'm on the outside. But you can't expect to be an insider the moment you walk into a room. Everyone in the fictional bar on the TV show Cheers had to learn Norm's name. I promise you, the first time he walked into that bar, yes, it's fictional, but let's go with it. Nobody shouted out Norm. That came later, after time, after presence, after he left the indelible mark of his rear end on that bar stool. Belonging always has a backstory. So what if just sometimes what we're calling exclusion is actually impatience? It's not cruelty. It's not gatekeeping. It's not a personal failing. It's just how most humans work. Ooh, think about any place you feel like you truly belong. It might be a friend group, a workplace, a church, a book club, a neighborhood, or, as in my case, a yoga studio. Now, unless you are very lucky, you didn't walk in on day one and instantly feel at home. You showed up, you observed, you felt awkward, you wondered if you'd come back, but then you did come back. Belonging doesn't happen because someone hands you a badge, although sometimes a name tag really helps. It happens because you show up long enough for people to learn your name and for you to learn theirs. That middle part where you're not invisible but not yet essential, that's the uncomfortable space most of us want to avoid. Now, right now, every newbie at the gym, it's January as I record this, every newbie at the gym gets the side eye from the regulars. We look at them and think, I will bother to learn your name if you are still here in February. Can you blame us? And this isn't just about gyms and bar rooms. Some of the most complicated belonging dynamics happen in families. When you enter a new family dynamic, The stakes are higher. The history is longer. The emotional memory is, well, very real. I remember when my husband and I first started seeing each other. His daughters gave me looks that made it very clear they had seen every evil stepmother in every Disney movie ever made. And honestly, they had both had a stepmom before me with all the associated baggage. They were not going to call me mom, though I have now received Mother's Day cards, but that took years. I had to be careful not to assume they were supposed to like me just because their father and I were falling in love. That wasn't fair to them. They didn't choose me. They didn't know me. From their perspective, I was an unknown character walking into a story that they were already living. Belonging wasn't something I could demand. It was something I had to earn slowly, consistently, respectfully. And you know what? We probably have seen it from the other side too. Our kids bring home a new boyfriend or girlfriend and assume that we should love this person just because they do. You may have friends who do the same thing, but that's not how trust works. We don't have the history yet. We haven't seen how this person shows up under pressure. So we're polite, observant, cautious, hopefully not unkind, just unconvinced. And that doesn't make us cold, it makes us human. So, whichever side of this equation you're on, dealing with the newcomer into your environment or being that newcomer, be sensitive, recognize our shared humanity, and take a minute to breathe. Newcomers into families, friendships, workplaces, or communities may have to earn their welcome, not by performing or people pleasing, but simply by being present long enough for us to trust them. Whew. Here's an uncomfortable truth. Sometimes what we call being left out is actually us leaving early. We don't stay long enough to become familiar. We don't stay long enough to be trusted. We don't stay long enough to be woven in. Instead, we leave and we take our loneliness with us. It's the only solace at that point, isn't it? And it's not much solace. So that yoga student, have another drink of tea, Wendy. That yoga student didn't hate the class. He hated the feeling of not yet belonging. And instead of asking, what would it take for me to become part of this? He decided the room was the problem. And I don't know about you. Oh, I'm pointing at me. We all do this more often than we'd like to admit. And social media hasn't helped. We see effortless laughter, seamless communities, instant connection. What we don't see is the backstory, the years behind that ease, the misunderstandings, the awkward first conversations, the moments when someone almost quit. Inside jokes don't mean you don't belong. They mean you arrived after the origin story. And every origin story needs a sequel. This is not the sequel. This is just another perspective. A few months ago, I came across a quote on a sign at the Foxfire Museum in Georgia. You remember I talked about that back in November? The sign read, "Always remember to have a friend, be one." It was attributed to Ari Carpenter, one of the old timers often interviewed in the early days of Foxfire magazine. And since then, I've seen variations of that quote again and again. Like the universe really wanted me to hear it. And that's what inspired this episode. But what I love about that quote, to have a friend, be one, it flips the script. Instead of asking why no one has reached out or why we don't feel included, it quietly asks something else. Am I reaching out? Am I contributing? Am I staying? Belonging is participatory. Now, I have noticed social media gives us a place to express loneliness, but it can also become a place where we linger instead of reaching out in real life. How about instead we use that awareness as a nudge to take one small step toward connection beyond the screen? Let's be honest, it gets more challenging as we get older. We're tired, we're busy, we've been hurt before. We don't want to try again just to be disappointed. So we protect ourselves by saying, if it doesn't feel right immediately, I'm out. Ooh, but midlife isn't the season for instant results. It's the season for intentional roots. Like a vineyard that has experienced blight, sometimes you have to put in new plants. And those plants, those new grapevines, don't bear fruit for a couple of years or more. We don't need more acquaintances. We need deeper connections. And depth takes time. This is why it matters. And by midlife, many of us think we've already done this. We've made friends, we've joined groups, we've shown up again and again. It's easy to believe that we should be recognized wherever we go, that our past effort should transfer. But the truth is that cycle repeats itself. From the first day of kindergarten, to the first job, to the first day in a new neighborhood, all the way to that first visit to a senior center. There is no stage of life where we're permanently excused from being new. Belonging isn't cumulative. You don't get to cash in old familiarity for new intimacy. Each new space asks for presence, patience, and participation. And yes, sometimes that feels exhausting, and you just want to curl up with a warm cup of tea. But opting out doesn't protect us. Isolation sneaks in quietly through smaller circles in the belief that meaningful connection is behind us. I'm here to tell you it isn't. Belonging isn't something we graduate from. It's a practice. There is a real courage in being the new person, in not knowing the jokes, in not knowing the rhythm, in being the one who doesn't quite fit yet. Every insider was once an outsider who stayed. They didn't stay because it was easy. They stayed because connection mattered more than comfort. So the next time you walk into a space and think, I don't belong here, try getting curious instead. Have I given this time? Have I shown up more than once? Have I offered myself before expecting to be embraced? Belonging isn't something we're owed on arrival. It's something we grow into through presence. And if you feel overwhelmed, take a moment. My favorite move is a quick trip to the ladies' room, cool water on your hands, a deep breath, make eye contact with yourself in the mirror. That glance in the mirror can remind yourself, I can do this. And sometimes as you stand at the sink, you see someone else who is also enjoying a quiet moment. Consider that connection starts with something as simple as complimenting their shoes or their lipstick or whatever feels sincere. Don't just give a compliment to give a compliment, but say, I love that color. If you really hate the shirt, but you love the color, say, I love that color, and leave it at that. This episode isn't about forcing yourself into places that harm you. It's about making room for newness and not mistaking discomfort for rejection. Choose curiosity over judgment. Stay a few minutes longer than you planned. Trust that familiarity is built, not granted. And sometimes the most radical act of self-care is simply deciding to come back the next week. Years ago, as a young Army wife, I was trying to thaw the hard shell of a sergeant major's wife. She was not quick to warm up to the new young officers' wives, or at least not to me. Ugh. Either way, there was one day I ran into her in the commissary. That's kind of like a grocery store on base. We were overseas, and not all of the ingredients I needed were available for the recipe I wanted to make for dinner. I asked her if she could help me find some substitutions. Now, this recipe called for pancetta, which I didn't even know how to pronounce at that time, and we had a good laugh over that. But there was no pancetta at the grocery store or the commissary. She assured me that I could do it with bacon. After that encounter, she softened and always greeted me by name. What I'm trying to say is, if you're feeling on the outside of something right now, I see you. If you're tempted to leave before the roots take hold, I get it. But maybe, just maybe, this is your reminder that belonging is still possible. Not instantly, not perfectly, but honestly, show up again. Be a friend first. Let yourself be new. And remember, inside jokes start as outside moments. I hope I've given you something to think about in this next week. And I wait to hear what you do with it. I'd love to hear stories of people trying one more time, or their frustrations and reaching out for support and knowing you're not alone, because it doesn't happen all at once. It takes time. So enjoy your beverage, stay hydrated, stay curious, and keep looking for the wonder in everyday life. We'll talk to you next week. Until then.
Like what you heard here today? Then we should be friends. I suggest you join my Facebook group. It's a good way to connect. We can have a conversation. Ask me questions, whatever you want to do. It is called the Wonderful Bucket List Life. That's Wonder-Full Bucket List Life. Be a bucket lister and join me on this adventure. Or you can go to my webpage, which is Wonder Wendy and Friends. Join the mailing list, learn about the book I wrote, adventures that are coming up in the future, and other podcasts. I look forward to talking to you soon, and stay hydrated. Have a great day.